Alright, so for this video, this is not something I'm going to have any lapse in memories about. This is not something that I even need to, remotely worry about forgetting anything because I am a Baki freak through and through. This will be our first video about Baki, and I'd like to cover some of the strongest characters in Baki. I probably won't be going over any, maximum tournament level characters, but while I don't think he's in, the top running of, the strongest characters, I would like to give a shout-out to Hector Doyle. I think he's one of the only convicts that I wouldn't really put up in, the top, I don't know, 25 strongest fighters or whatever. But he is, an insanely, cool character. He's my favorite convict. So I am giving him the first video as, an honorary mention. So without further ado, let's get into Hector Doyle after this.
I wonder what went wrong today, eh? Why do I feel like I linger between the words to say, eh? To say the words to remember.
Okay, so for this video, I'm basically going to be talking about, his role in the story, most of the stuff I go over in my, my overview series. So, I guess the first thing we can touch upon is just really, his background, what we know about him before, he even gets to, Japan. So, we don't know a whole lot about Doyle, but we have a full name for him. His name is Hector Doyle. One of the few convicts we actually know the full name of. We just know Speck as Speck, Sikorsky as Sikorsky. We know Dorian is a Kaio, but we don't know his full name. We just know that his name is Dorian. The only other convict we know the full name of is Ryuko Yanagi. But his name is Hector Doyle. He is English. His nationality is English. We don't really know where in England he's from, but I think it's speculated that he's from, Ireland or Scotland, because of a comment he made about an alcoholic beverage he shared with Retsu in their encounter, of it being the drink of his homeland or something like that. But we do know for sure that he is, an Englishman. And he was also I believe he was being executed in Glasgow, if I remember correctly. So yeah, he was going to be sentenced to death at the electrocution chair. And we don't know what exactly his crime was, but we do know that as an occupation, he is an assassin. So it likely has something to do with that. So he like all the other convicts, he wants to know defeat. So he has the electrocution chair turned on, and he's getting his brain cooked. And they turn off the electrocution chair. The main, I suppose he would be the warden to oversee the electrocution execution. And he's like, oh yeah, okay, I think we've electrocuted him for long enough. I think they have a set time for these things. So they turn it off, and he busts out of his restraints and he gets behind the two guards that are watching and kills them both by slamming their heads together, instantly killing them both, before they're even able to react. And he's still got the blindfold on, because they blindfold you when you're put on the electric chair. He's still got the blindfold on, and he challenges the warden to a fight. He's like, you can use your gun, and I'll keep this blindfold on. You should be able to beat me in a fight. So the warden pulls out the gun, and he shoots, and Doyle dodges it, and blitzes the warden and smashes his face in and crushes the gun under his heel. And he's like, the electrocution chair would have killed me if you just kept it on for 17 more seconds or something like that. My wish would have been fulfilled if you just kept the electrocution on for 17 more seconds. Now, we do note two important things about Doyle's character, and it leads to why he's one of my favorite characters, but There are two things to note when he, about this execution scene. One is that he kills both the guards and the warden in a relatively painless manner. Like all three of them are killed basically instantly. Yet he doesn't actually kill the operator of the electrocution chair. They have a guy that sits there and presses the button to, flip the switch, so to speak. And he did not kill him. It was not necessary to kill him because he was not armed and he did not attempt to restrain Doyle, so Doyle didn't kill him. Doyle also cooperated with somebody else to help him escape. He had a pilot that he told to meet him at a specific place in a specific time, and that pilot would fly him to Tokyo. So he cooperated with somebody. He was, he didn't torture anybody or kill them in a brutal manner or fashion. He just, quickly finished them off and didn't kill anybody that it was unnecessary to kill. So he arrives in Japan and he meets the other convicts, and they almost get into a fight in the Korakuen Underground Tournament. All these convicts, of course, are meeting because of something Tokugawa, the owner of the Tokugawa estate and the leader of the Korakuen Underground Tournaments, like the one who sets it up, the fight promoter, the owner of the Underground Fight Club. He describes the event as synchronicity, where basically events are just destined to happen. It's basically an explanation of, I don't want to say it's like it's just like plot, I don't want to say it's just like plot taken form in anime or a manga, but that's basically what it is. Like, these characters just all arrive at the same time for the same purpose, to fight these people they don't even know exists because reasons. But I don't care, because it leads to a really cool arc, and it leads to, one of my more favorite characters. I wouldn't say he's like one of my favorite characters of all time, but he's definitely up there, being, of course, Hector Doyle. So I believe the first person Doyle goes after is Baki. He goes after Baki. I'm pretty sure they were all able to sense that he's the strongest, and even if they didn't, I'm like 90% sure Tokugawa introduced him as like the champion when he showed up or whatever. So like, he goes after Baki while Baki's in class. He like jumps up like 2 or 3 stories into Baki's classroom through the window, like shatters the window, and he like one-shots Baki's teacher, who tries to like, what the hell are you doing in here? Tries to like grab his shoulder or something. He just like smashes him in the face without even looking. And in the manga, Doyle is actually able to tell that Baki can sense the threat level of somebody, just at a glance. So he's like, it's good that like kids these days, he's making a joke. He's like, it's good that kids these days are, keeping their senses sharp or whatever. And like, Baki strikes his stance. Basically what happens is like, Doyle, shows up, and Baki actually, somehow slides under his desk and kicks vertically upward, like at a slight diagonal angle, and kicks the desk right into Doyle's face. They both like do their backflips and get into their striking stances or whatever. And, Doyle makes a comment about how students' pencil cases are filled with like wonderful weapons and stuff, or like such, good last-second weapons. And he snatches like I forget what it is. I think he grabs like a protractor from like a desk nearby, and like he like uses the part where you stick in the middle. He like increases the length on it to use it as a blade. And Baki's like, Doyle, thank you for saving me from this boring class. And then Baki jumps out of the window and escapes, because he doesn't want to start a fight in the class because it might threaten his classmates' lives and stuff. Plus, he doesn't want to oust himself as this like crazy fighter, because he thinks that people will treat him differently, and that like he'll get kicked out of school because of his background as like an underground fighter. So he leaves, and Baki eventually runs into Yanagi and has this fight with him. But more so onto what Doyle's having to deal with. He attacks Baki. He basically goes around picking fights with a bunch of different people. Like, he has a meeting with Captain Jerry Stridham, Yujiro's friend, and basically he's like, alright, I'm gonna fight Kosho Koreha. Like, it's not really set up like that simply, but he goes to fight Kosho, and Kosho's like, oh, you use tricks and stuff. You're not a real martial artist. You're a loser. And Doyle's not a big fan of that. Like he does use tricks. We'll get more onto like what tricks he has, but he's basically like Kosho is kind of like flexing that he's a real fighter. Like Doyle pretends to go sit down in a chair, and Kosho's like, nah, don't try to trick me. Okay, I can see that you're feigning like a disengagement, and you're gonna actually like try to spring a surprise attack. So they go back and forth and stuff, and Doyle, kind of shows that he doesn't. It's almost like he doesn't like being referred to as somebody who's not a fighter. He talks about it more with Stridum afterwards, but he gets into a fight with Kosho, and he reveals that he has like these blades inside his like joints, like his ankles, his wrists, most of the joints on his body. He has a blade that when he like flexes his arms or something a certain way, he's able to pop them out, so to speak. So Kosho's trying to deal with like, okay, he's got these blades or whatever. The fight goes on or whatever. Kosho's pretty much got the upper hand. He's putting the smack down on Doyle. But there does come a problem where like he keeps telling Doyle to get up, and then eventually Doyle stops getting up. So Kosho goes in and he's like, I won't kick him in when he's down. And like Doyle unleashes this, like, he's got this spring in the joint of his elbow that allows him to launch his fist forward, and he smacks Kosho in the face so hard he knocks his jaw loose. So Kosho's got to reconnect his jaw and everything. But basically what ends up happening is Kosho kind of psychs himself out because he's trying to find a proper place to strike Doyle. And Doyle's all covered in these switchblades. He's like, okay, which of these blades is he going to try to strike me with? Where's a place where I can strike him where I won't end up getting stabbed? He's like looking over all over his body, and he finds a spot, and he goes to attack him. And Doyle unleashes like his trump card, which is basically he's got a bomb strapped to his chest. And he blows up the bomb, and it blows off Kosho Kureha's face. And Stridum's like, oh, you're a cheater, you're not a real fighter. And Doyle, again, he kind of shows this like mentality that he has, where he genuinely does consider himself like a normal fighter. He's like, you guys fight by these rules, any means necessary, you win, you don't like, pull punches, you don't like, oh, I'm not going to poke the guy in the eyes, and I'm not going to kick him in the balls, I do what you guys do. I win by the means that are necessary to me. So Stridum's like, oh, if I pulled out a gun, he's like, go ahead. I'll fight you. You go ahead and pull out a gun. Even if you wanted to use a nuclear bomb, you could go ahead. But all I have to do is kill you before you get to it. So he kind of makes his stance clear. He's like, I do consider myself a fighter, even though I use these, tactics that are unorthodox for what you guys consider a fighter. And he gets into scuffles, all around. Like he gets into a fight with Retsu. And basically all that comes of that, it's not like this like crazy, like out of control battle. Like he has a few scuffles with Oliva Biscuit. Like I remember he dressed up like a female police officer while Oliva was looking for where the convicts might be. He's working with the police force to find the convicts, and he was doing analysis, and like he was working on a computer. And Doyle comes in there dressed up as like a female officer to give him his coffee. And true to his spy nature, he successfully tricks Oliva until bam, he pulls out a knife, and he starts going at Oliva, and Oliva ends up getting like this huge scar on his face. But Doyle ends up realizing that he's kind of outmatched here. So when Morio Sonoda and Shibukawa show up at the door, and they're like, hey, what's going on in there? What's happening? Doyle makes his escape. He like escapes through a ceiling tile, and he finds his way to a subway, and he basically latches onto the side of the subway, and the train's just going like as fast as it's going, whatever, and he's just latched onto the side trying to make his escape. So later on, he gets into a scuffle with Retsu. They're actually both at the mall. Retsu's there to buy a book, and I forget what Doyle's there to buy. I don't know if it was ever mentioned, but it's like "Oh, fancy meeting you here. What a coincidence." It's like, "All right, let's fight. We're doing it. This is a pure coincidence. It's got to mean something." So Doyle invites Retsu to go drink. We're about to fight each other. And then they go to this like really vibes bar. Like it's got like a really peaceful kind of chill mood. And they just start chatting a little bit, and Retsu seems kind of pissed. He's like, "I heard you used explosives against, Kosho." He's like, "Oh, that was the guy's name. Yeah, well, I did anything I had to do to win. That's what you guys do, right?" So they've both finished their drinks, and Retsu's like, don't, you don't try to say what you do is what we do. And Doyle tries to take one of the mood candles and uses the alcohol in his breath to try to blow the flame into Retsu's face. And Retsu not only knocks the candle into Doyle so that he sets himself on fire, but he's thrown a kunai into Doyle's eyeball. So now his left eyeball is just skewered. And it doesn't get much better from there, because Doyle realizes that Retsu's intention is to use not only his Chinese martial arts, but the training in Chinese weaponry that he has also received, as an extension of Chinese martial arts, like his training with kunais, which he uses, and he just fills Doyle with kunais. Doyle busts out of the back door to escape. He's like, "Thank you, Retsu, very cool." And he's just like running for his life, but like Retsu's got all the kunais like tied to like string and stuff, and he's using it to basically stop him from escaping. And then Retsu busts out like a Chinese sword and slices Doyle's back. He gets like a nice new X-Men tattoo on his back. It's not going well for Doyle, to say the least. Doyle tries to escape through a manhole cover, or like through a manhole anyway, and that doesn't end up turning out well for him. So he's trying to go through all his tricks. He's missing an eye. He's in immense pain. The dude's like shrieking and stuff. So he opts out to use his trump card. Retsu actually pulls out a like a bow staff, right? And he's like, "Okay, like, if you want to use weapons, we can use weapons. Like, I'm gonna play the game like you like to play the game." So like he's like so precise with the bow staff that he's able to smack all the kunais off of Doyle that he had thrown into him. He had thrown like hundreds of kunais into the guy, and he smacks them all out. And he's like, "You want to keep going? Like, you admit defeat. You've lost." So Doyle's like, "I got one last trick," and he tries to set off the bomb and blow up Retsu. But Retsu already knew it was coming, and he uses the bow staff as leverage as he launches himself up into the air and like wall runs, I guess you could say, over the side and beats the ever-loving crap out of Doyle. He just smacks him to hell and back. Like, the man is... he gets bodied. There's no other way to describe it. Like, he's completely destroyed. This man smacked him into next week, met him in next week, and smacked him back. Alright, so they're there in the alley, and Doyle is just all kinds of messed up. And right when Retsu is about to be like, "You gotta admit defeat, because I just dunked on you," we get a surprise cameo from Jack Hanma. He comes up because he actually made a deal with Shinogi Kureha, Kosho's older brother. Who's like, Shinogi is like this great doctor, right? And he's basically been acting like Jack's personal doctor, so to speak, because Jack is he's really into enhancements through like medical means. Like, he's been using like these super steroids that have like cut his life expectancy to like 30 at the most or something. But like basically him and Shinogi get together, and he does like a limb extension surgery to make himself taller and make his arms longer to gain a reach advantage, which he thinks will help him in fights. And basically Shinogi calls in that favor for doing that surgery for him. He calls in that favor, and he's like, "I want you to avenge my brother Kosho, who just got his face blown off by this like convict guy that just showed up." So his plan was to, because he didn't want to fight Doyle when Doyle was all beat up by Retsu. So he injects horse tranquilizer into Retsu while he's not paying attention, and he tells Doyle, he's like, you go, you get better, and when you get better, I'm gonna come and find you, and I'm gonna, repay my debt that I have to Shinogi. Like, don't worry, I'll find you if you don't find me. So, Jack leaves, Retsu's knocked out, and Doyle can leave. So he tries to leave, and this is another scene that it just makes me think, like, okay, Doyle's, at the very least, Doyle is the nicest convict. He goes to leave, he's like dripping blood, and he's like already like on the verge of death. And two guys come up to Retsu in the alley, and they try to mug him. They're taking the book he just bought, they're shifting through his wallet for money, and they're like thug hoodlums. They're like little pricks. So Doyle goes back, he's like, I can't in good conscience, funnily enough, a man who kills people for a living, but we start to get a sense really at this scene that he doesn't, that's what sets him apart from the others. The others kill people because they either don't value human life, or they do it for fun. Doyle just does it because it's his job. He does it as a job. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. So basically what happens is he comes back, he's like, I can't in good conscience leave Retsu to, be mugged here defenselessly in the alley. So he goes back, one of the guys pulls a knife on him, the other pulls a stun baton. He flicks his blood in the face of the guy with the stun baton, grabs the stun baton in the guy's hand, and shoves it into the guy's chin so that he shocks himself. And then the other guy who has the switchblade, he smacks the joint in his arm, and it causes him to reflexively stab himself in the shoulder as his arm jerks up. So he runs away. So then Doyle goes away and he starts walking again. And then a dog comes out of nowhere and starts barking at Retsu. Like, this man has the worst luck in the world. My boy Retsu could be like every shonen protagonist in every ecchi or isekai in every single anime ever. So it's like, he's got the worst luck. He gets knocked out by Jack when he's winning the fight. He's in this dark alley with this dude who wants to kill him, knocked out. Luckily Doyle, turns out to be not such a bad guy, but he gets mugged, and then he gets attacked by a dog, and he's knocked out for the whole night. So Doyle goes back and he shoos the dog away, and he's like, okay, I obviously won't be able to leave this guy by himself. So he stands there all night, bleeding out and dying. So Retsu wakes up the next morning, and he realizes what Doyle has done as he's standing there looking paler than a ghost with a kunai still sticking out of his eyeball, bleeding out everywhere, and he's surrounded by crows and he's not even reacting because the dude's unconscious, just standing there. So Retsu freaks out. He grabs Doyle, he straps him to his back, and he starts running for the Shinshinkai dojo because he knows that they have a hospital at the HQ. So he's running, and he's like, oh, there's a highway here? So he grabs out a rope he has, and he throws it up to the highway, and he rappels up the highway. And he almost gets hit by a motorcycle, and he does some Chinese kenpo technique to hit the front headlight of the motorcycle, but force the kinetic energy through the bike so that it doesn't destroy the bike and hurt the person, or it doesn't hurt the person driving at all, and it blows right out the back end and it takes off the back tire without hurting the person or destroying the front end of the motorcycle. And he's like, my name is Retsu Kaio. If you need me to reimburse you for your vehicle, you can contact me at the Shinshinkai dojo. And he bows and he starts bolting again. The guy is just so taken aback. He's like, huh? So anyway, so he's bolting down, and he's, trying to get to the dojo, and he comes across a rock and a hard place. There is a river, and, he's got Doyle strapped to his back, and he's like, okay, it's about 15 meters across. And he looks to his right, and he's like, there's a bridge to cross this river, but it's about 1 kilometer away. I can make it to the bridge, but I don't know if he has that much time. He's been bleeding for 8 hours. So, do I go for the bridge 1 kilometer away, or do I go for this river 15 meters? He's like, well, I'm gonna go for the river because it's the shorter distance. And this man starts walking on water. I did not know that Jesus was Chinese. he starts like running super fast, like I'm talking Dash from The Incredibles. This man is running across water with Doyle on his back, and yeah, he's sinking a little bit, but he straight up says that it's only because there's another grown-ass man, old 6'6" man, that's on his back and completely unconscious, so he's supporting the entire weight of himself and this person as he's running across 15 meters of water. And he does it. Takes his first step back onto the bank, and he cracks the concrete that he steps on, and he bolts. And the people there are like, I could deadass tell everybody I see, and nobody would believe me. So he's bolting, he finally makes it to the Shinshinkai Dojo. Doyle gets healed. Retsu and him have a nice moment where he's like, you protected me all night, so I like saved you. And he was like, yeah, you even ran on water for me. He's like, you were conscious? He was like, well, you were rocking us a lot, so, and of course I was bound to wake up. And he like feeds him like this like Chinese meal that promotes growth and tastes like crap. So basically first world medicine. There's really no difference there. But you know, they have that moment, and Retsu kind of like turns his back. He's like, oh yeah, you know, it'd be a shame if you weren't here when I turn around. He's like, you know, since the Shinshinkai Dojo worked so hard to get you back to full health and everything. And he turns back around, and it's, you know, Doyle of course has taken this time to escape through the window right next to his bed, and you know, Retsu's not really surprised. He's like, goodbye Doyle, you know, I'm sorry that I totally like destroyed your ass, my guy. So Doyle takes this opportunity to reevaluate what he's done, and he apologizes to everybody, and that's where his role in the story ends. Nah, I'm just kidding. He goes and blows up the people that just healed him. Yeah, he goes back to the Shinshinkai Dojo in what he calls... Well, actually, no, he shows up there normally, and they're like, hey, you gotta take your sneakers off when you're in here, white guy. And he's like, oh yeah, I'm sorry, I'm just not used to your traditions, I'm not accustomed. So he takes his sneakers off. He's like, oh, I'm so sorry. And they're like, well, what do you want? You know, and he's like, well, you know, you guys, you know, healed me back to full health, and I don't like when people do good things for me because I am bad guy. Okay, I am not nice guy. I am bad man. So he's like, I'm gonna fight you guys in karate. And they're like, oh, I mean, okay, dude. I mean, get ready to get your ass handed to you. So they're like, yeah, let's go ahead. I guess we'll fight. And one of the guys is like, oh, dude, do you need like a key or something? Or he's like, do you need a gi? He's like, nah, I don't need a gi. I brought my own. And he like drops this duffel bag he's carrying with him, and he pulls out like a big styrofoam, completely sealed out, or not like styrofoam, but aluminum foil. Pulls out this suit that's like lined with aluminum foil on the inside, and it's like completely sealed off. And Katsumi's like, that's not a, is that what gis look like in England? He's like, wait a minute. And then Doyle pulls out a bag of flour, and he like just like blows all the flour in like across the entire dojo. And Katsumi, he's sitting there, he's like, no, something about this doesn't seem right. Like, I don't think this is how karate works in like any country. Nah, something's off here. And Doyle pulls out a lighter, and he's like, I think I smell gunpowder. And Katsumi's like, wait a minute. And then Doyle lights the lighter, and it blows up the entire Shinshinkai Dojo because Doyle actually caused a dust explosion, which I don't even ask me to go through all the particulars of that. I think I made a C in high school, or high school chemistry. So don't even ask me to go through all the particulars of it. But basically, what ends up happening is, you know, he's got flour and gunpowder in the flour bag. Of course, he's wearing the suit as protective gear, but when he lights his lighter, it makes the gunpowder explode. But it's also like using the flour as a means to spread everything, and the flour also plays into the explosion. They explained it pretty thoroughly, but I don't remember all the details. Basically, he bakes a cake and make everything go boom. So he, of course, is fine because he was wearing protective gear, and he makes it out of there, and Katsumi's like covered in like second and third degree burns. He like loses all of his hair on his eyebrows and on his head, and he makes it out of there. And you know who was just on their way back as Doyle makes it out? Dopo Orochi, the god of war. um, so as one would expect from an angry bald man with the title of god of war, he takes this opportunity to destroy Doyle. He sees that Doyle is likely the one that caused the explosion in his dojo. He's just gotten back from the hospital because Dorian blew his face off. So he takes Dorian to a park. Or not Dorian, excuse me. He takes Doyle to a park. And he's basically like, you're not a real fighter. You're actually a loser. So go ahead and use your weapons. I mean, I'm not going to use my karate, but you go ahead and use your weapons. And Doyle's like, well, now hang on. This is where we kind of see his pride as a fighter come through. He's like, now hang on. I'm not going to use my weapons against some old man not even using his karate techniques. So Doyle tries to make a play on Doppo. And Doppo smashes his face in with karate. He's like, wow. Bro, you stupid. Why do you think... Do you honestly believe that I, a person who knows and uses karate in fights, would not use karate in a fight because I said so? If you want to talk about, oh, I use weapons because that's what I do. Oh, well, I use karate because that's what I do. Like, did you honestly think I wasn't going to use karate? I mean, I guess your face is the result of that. I mean, I feel like it's natural selection. You know, stupidity kind of breeds death in this situation. But, of course, Doyle is not actually dead. He is held captive, so to speak, at the Shinshinkai dojo, and basically Katsumi gets to pay him back for what he did. He is given the opportunity to basically beat Doyle into submitting and admitting defeat. So Doyle is laying unconscious, and he wakes up, and Katsumi's like, okay, here are the rules. You can try to attack me with whatever you want, you can do whatever you want, and every single time you get up to attack me, if you don't admit defeat, I'm going to smash your face in. And Doyle's like, oh yeah, I'm going to fight you, ha! And then Katsumi destroys him. So they go at it again, they go at it a few times and stuff. They feed him, and then after they're done eating, he jumps up and goes to attack him, and Katsumi's like, oh, you're not going to use your utensils as a weapon? And, you know, Doyle, who's kind of now in this mindset, he's like, I'm going to become like a real deal fighter like these guys. You know, we can already see it, like his fighter's pride kind of poking through. Because I remember Dopo even made a comment. He's like, you know, you can always run away. Like, I feel like you like doing that. Like, you ran away from your fight with Oliva. You've been like running away from everybody you've been fighting. So, you know, I know you convicts like to run away and do your cheap tricks. So if you want to run away, you can go ahead and do that. And that's how he baits Doyle into following him to the park so he can whoop his ass. So basically, every time he wakes up, he gets beat up. He doesn't use the utensils. And Katsumi's like, oh, okay. So then they have this interaction where he's like, if you don't give up now, I'm going to drop you like a bag of bricks in a pool. And Doyle doesn't give up. So Katsumi smashes his face in one of the coolest scenes I think was animated in the recent Baki 2018 Netflix adaptation. It just completely caves his face in with like a low strike. So Doyle wakes up, and one of the attendees at the Shinshinkai dojo, one of the students, is like, yeah, Katsumi wanted me to tell you that he has given up on trying to break your will, and that you've won, and that he concedes defeat. So Doyle, I think this is one of the moments that makes him my... This is the defining moment that makes him my favorite convict. He finds out where Katsumi is living, and because Katsumi let him go, he stands outside Katsumi's apartment door. When Katsumi comes out to, you know, do whatever, go to the Shinshinkai dojo to train or whatever, he takes his shirt off, he bows, on one knee he bows and throws his shirt down. And that's basically him admitting defeat. That's him, you know, basically throwing down your shirt is like a gesture of, like, you know, surrender. Like, he bows to, like, he does like a bow of grace on one knee with his shirt on the ground. He is 100% fully admitting defeat to Katsumi. And because of this, because he was like, oh no, I admit defeat. He's like, no, 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 I insist, I admit defeat. It reminds me of that one, I think it was an SNL skit where it was the two people at the four-way stop, and they kept waving each other on, and every time, you know, one person would wave the other person on, they'd come forward a little bit and then stop, and they just kept doing that until they crashed. You know, they both admit defeat, and they become friends. So Doyle, I believe, yeah, Doyle is the only one of the convicts to become friends with the, I don't know, the underground fighters, so to speak. I guess you can call that their group. So, Doyle becomes friends with Katsumi. Katsumi gets him a ticket out of country. One of the people that goes to school at Shinshinkai, you know, he's at the dojo. You know, he works at like a shipping dock, and he's basically like, you know, you can use this boat to get to the Middle East and escape both law enforcement, and you can get out of here. And he takes him up on the offer. Oh, it's such a sweet scene. Dorian, or not Dorian, I keep saying Dorian. Doyle actually says, you know, I want something to remember you by. I want something to remember our friendship, and I want something to, you know, be more like you guys, that you, like, fight with your fists. So, Katsumi teaches him the Seiken, which is the basic karate punch. You know, he spends a few, like, it looks to be because of the time lapse, a few hours teaching him until the boat arrives and he can say his goodbyes, and Katsumi throws Doyle his black belt. He's like, take this as a sign of our friendship. So he now has that black belt from Katsumi. He now has this move he learned from Katsumi. Their friendship is like firmly cemented and concrete. So he gets up onto the boat, and my least favorite convict, literally because he did this, ruins everything. Bruh. Old nasty ass Yanagi with his missing teeth and his ugly face. Ugh. Stupid. Yanagi shows up and he's like, ooh, you guys look a bit. Just imagine the SpongeBob meme. You know the one. I'm putting it up on screen right now. Yanagi shows up. He's like, you guys look like a bunch of fair maidens saying goodbye to each other. Shut up. Shut up. So what he does is him and Doyle fight because Yanagi's like, you've betrayed the convict side and you've admitted defeat, and that makes you a loser. So they go for each other, and Doyle uses his one of his blades in his wrist to scratch right underneath Yanagi's eye, but Yanagi uses the poison in his hand to blind Doyle's other eye, making just a slight tap to Doyle's eye. Yanagi blinds him because of the poison. So now he's completely blind. So Yanagi uses a cigarette and he props it on the side of the boat to make Doyle think that Yanagi is at the side of the boat. He's like, oh, I smell the smoke, it must be him right there. He's got a cigarette. But Yanagi's actually right behind him, and he uses the belt that Katsumi just gave to Doyle to choke Doyle out. And he's like, oh, why would you keep a weapon around you? Shut up! So Doyle has to, unfortunately, well, first, in probably one of my favorite scenes for Doyle, he actually uses the Seiken he just learned to smash Yanagi's face in. And Yanagi's like, okay, well, I'm just gonna hang you with this black belt off the side of the boat. Use this, like, treasured thing that you have from your friendship with Katsumi to kill you. So Doyle uses his switchblade in his arm to cut the black belt. And he's, like, hanging onto the side of the boat, barely, you know, so Yanagi decides to use a katana to cut off Doyle's head because of some bullshit Japanese, you know, this is the way of the... Shut up, Yanagi! You don't know. You're not a cultured Japanese man, alright? You are filth, alright? You disgrace the Japanese culture that you claim to kill Doyle. You loser! Anyway, really harping on that hate for Yanagi. I'm gonna love doing his video. That's gonna be great. In any case, it completely fails because Doyle has, you know, the cybernetic frame. He has the steel frame in his skeleton, which is how he has the wires to control all of his switchblades and his bombs and stuff like that. We'll talk about that later. But basically, the katana is unable to cut through it, so, you know, he blocks it with his arm, and he goes to get Doyle again, he goes to try to strike him from right down the middle, but Doyle lets go of the boat at the last second, falls into the water, and he swims away, and Yanagi is left tasting no victory. He does not get the Fortnite W, and now he is just a lame scrub, no epic W. He's trash. Okay, so after that, Doyle swims to shore, and he's hiding in a cave, and he's like, well, I just became Daredevil because I am blind as a bat. And Oliver shows up, and he's like, hey, good evening, Mr. Doyle. Like, you remember when you gave me that scar on my face? And Doyle's like, yeah, if you're here to arrest me, you'll never take me alive. And like, he just picks up Doyle and like looks at his eyeball, and he's like, oh, you're blind. Wow, I was here for like a challenge, but like, you suck. And then he breaks Doyle's back, and Doyle dies. The end. Or is it? No, actually, Doyle survives, and he's taken back to jail. It's revealed in the Revenge Tokyo manga that he is in jail, but he's still training himself. He's actually still going at it. Basically what happens is he realizes that, you know, because he can no longer see, his sense of hearing is, like, really high. Like, I'm talking, like, this dude actually became Daredevil, alright? But he's like, I can go a step beyond. And basically, he's in front of, like, the warden, and the warden's like, don't think that we're gonna treat you any differently because you're blind. Like, you're not really, you're not, and he's like, actually, boom, and he blows out both of his eardrums, and he's like, now I'm blind and deaf. And basically, he uses this new handicap to make it so that his sense of feeling is, like, insane. Like, he's standing in a prison cell. I'm pretty sure they won't clean his prison cell because he's, like, so dangerous, but they have him in a prison cell. And there's bugs and disgusting, like, grubs everywhere, and bats fly through the window of his prison cell to come in and eat the bugs, pick them up and eat them. And Doyle's sense of feeling is so good that it allows him to basically see the world around him, in that he can feel the vibrations of the wings of the bats flying, and he can feel the gusts of wings or wind that the wings are producing, and he's able to snatch both bats out of midair and kill them. So my man literally turned into Daredevil. Hopefully he comes back soon. They've been kind of hinting something in the Baki 2020 anime that's coming out soon, June 4th for Netflix. And they've been talking about, like, a return of the death row inmates. I don't know if they're going to be covering you know, the Revenge Tokyo saga, or if it's something different, like they're doing like a Netflix adaptation only, you know, anime saga to see what happens with Revenge Tokyo. But it's probably going to be Revenge Tokyo. I hope it's the other, just to see where, like, basically what I want to see is, I want to see Doyle come back and do something with Katsumi. Like, I want there to be fruit from the tree they've grown of being friends. I want there to be an actual impact in the story, not just Yanagi angry, Yanagi smash, Yanagi fail. All of us smash. Okay. So that's basically his impact in the story, but of course I'd just like to do a quick overview of his abilities. Most of his abilities coming from his cyberization. Like, he has, like, razors on his collar. That's actually something he added himself. Rob Robinson, like, his very first, like, doing anything, in the, like, the Baki manga Beyond Escaping, he's reading, like, a newspaper on a bench, and Rob Robinson from the Maximum Tournament comes through, and he's training and running, and Doyle throws the newspaper so fast and so precisely that it leaves a paper cut on Rob Robinson's face. So he's like, you don't want to fight me, man. You're just an amateur. I don't fight amateurs. And he, like, grabs Doyle by the collar, and, you know, all of his fingers start bleeding and stuff because Doyle's got razors on his collar. And Doyle takes this moment of shock to use a blade he has in his elbow to slice open Rob Robinson's throat. And I don't remember if Rob Robinson dies or not. I don't think he does. But basically, Doyle, you know, has these razors on his collar, so that if somebody grabs him like that, if he's able to bait somebody into grabbing him like that, he is able to, you know, gain an element of surprise, so to speak. Like, he can shock them with their sliced up fingers and then take a shot on them. Of course, his main means of fighting people throughout what we've seen is the metal hooked blades on every arm, leg, hand, and foot joint, and it's basically activated through like his fingers twitching. They pull the wires on his frame. He's got a bomb strapped to his chest that's controlled by his nerves. Again, crazy. That's the one that failed to hurt Retsu, and that's the one that blew off Kosho's face. And of course, the one that knocked Kosho's jaw loose. He has a spring-loaded arm. And of course, he has, we don't really see it outside of his attack on Katsumi and the Shinshinkai Dojo, but he has his fireproof clothing, his bag of wheat flour mixed with gunpowder that he used to blow up, the entire floor of the Shinshinkai Dojo. So he's a pretty adept assassin. We see him, pretty impressively fighting Oliva and fighting, Yanagi. We see that he's no slouch in the normal combat department. And of course, adding Seiken to his arsenal of normal moves is definitely a worthwhile endeavor. But yeah, that's pretty much it for Hector Doyle. Again, my favorite convict, and he's the reason why I don't really like Yanagi. Of course, I don't hate Yanagi as much as I'm playing it up for. I just realized that he probably felt betrayed, or he probably felt like this guy lost his edge because he's no longer this angry, bad murder assassin. I mean, Yanagi kind of had his own tough time. I feel like it was out of frustration because he had just come off being absolutely clowned on by Baki. So I don't hold it against him too much. He got his comeuppance from Yujiro, but we'll talk more about that when we talk about Yanagi. I'm just realizing that this video has gone on for almost 45 minutes, so I'd like to cut it here. Thank you all for watching. Expect to see more Baki videos for sure. I'm thinking about doing a versus battle between series like Baki and Kengan Ashura, and just other fighting series in general. But yeah, I think that's going to do it for me. Like I said, thank you guys for watching. Leave a comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Ring that bell so you'll know when my videos are actually coming out. And of course, for your comment, you can leave anything like I liked the video, something of support. I didn't like the video. I love seeing negativity in the comment section. Please don't. My self-esteem, no. Also, if you have any characters you'd like me to cover, ahead of my scheduled characters to cover already, just let me know. And of course, if you want to see any, fights between characters, let me know in the comment section. My first pick for Doyle would probably be Dr. Hanafusa from Kengan Ashura. That's one I see discussed on the internet quite often. So, leave a comment if you want to see Doyle fight somebody or somebody else fight someone. It'll just be my opinion on the matter. I'll have some evidence, of course, to back my case, but I'd love to promote discussion in the comment section. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.